A man stood before a crowd, stage lights casting a glow on his scarred face, his voice rising and falling, making the room roar with laughter. Richard Pryor, the Picasso of comedy, captivated America with raw stories from the slums. But behind the laughs was a heart in flames. In 1980, he ran through Los Angeles streets, his body ablaze after a mysterious fire. Accident? Suicide? Or a plot to silence him? He once whispered to friends, "I feel like someone's watching me." From a Peoria brothel to Hollywood's heights, Pryor had fame, money, love. But why did he end up alone in a wheelchair, haunted by family secrets and rumors of betrayal? This is the story of a man who made the world laugh but couldn't save himself. Join us as we uncover the fire that consumed him. Chapter 1. A harsh childhood in a brothel. One afternoon in 1946, 6-year-old Richard Pryor stood frozen in a narrow Peoria, Illinois alley, hands trembling as he opened an abandoned shoebox. Inside wasn't shoes, but the cold body of a newborn baby. From that moment, he knew Peoria wasn't made for dreams. The streets reeked of liquor, and the nightly shouts from his grandmother Marie Carter's brothel echoed like a sad song that never stopped. Skinny and quick-witted, Richard darted through dark hallways where his mother, Gertrude, worked as a prostitute, and his father, Leroy, was both a pimp and a boxer. The brothel wasn't just home. It was a violent world where a boy learned to dodge drunken men and the punches from the family's bar, famous door. But the darkness didn't end there. Stories say Richard was abused by a neighborhood teen, then a Catholic priest. Those invisible scars clung to him, like a curse he kept secret. Nobody knows who he told, or if he buried it like another shoebox, holding pain nobody wanted to open. At 10, his mother left, abandoning him to Marie, a woman both protective and terrifying with her belt. "My mom didn't want to leave me," Richard once told a friend, but his voice carried doubt. A neighbor whispered that Gertrude was forced out, that Marie, with her steely gaze, gave her no choice. In Marie's bedroom, people said there was a heavy, locked safe nobody dared touch. Rumors swirled it held forged adoption papers or photos of politicians sneaking into the brothel. Was it a real secret, or just a story spun to explain Marie's control? Richard never said, but for the rest of his life, he never saw a shoebox the same way. It held not shoes, but buried dreams. Amid the darkness, a spark flickered. Juliet Whitaker, a community center director, saw the cleverness in the boy's eyes. At 12, she gave Richard a role in Rumpelstiltskin. Stepping on stage, hearing the crowd's applause, he felt something close to love for the first time. But even that light couldn't banish the shadows. Richard learned to use laughter to hide pain. Yet the feeling of abandonment made him wonder, did anyone really want him? Or were they all just more shoeboxes, filled with empty promises? Chapter 2. Hiding secrets to reach the top. "What am I doing here?" Richard Pryor shouted into the crowd at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas in 1967. The microphone hit the floor, stage lights flickered, and the white audience stared, stunned, as the 27-year-old walked off, abandoning the spotlight he'd once craved. 4 years earlier, he was a 23-year-old gripping a mic in New York comedy clubs, where coffee mingled with cigarette smoke and strangers' laughter. There, alongside Bob Dylan and Woody Allen, he mimicked Bill Cosby's clean humor, loved by white audiences. In 1965, he appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, spinning made-up tales of a childhood in a multiracial apartment, hiding the truth of Peoria's brothel. "I'm Polish Puerto Rican," he joked, making the crowd roar. But under the bright stage lights, he felt like he was wearing a mask, unsure if anyone saw the real tears behind the comedic disguise. Success hit like a whirlwind. His 1974 album, That Nigger's Crazy, won a Grammy, playing in living rooms across America. A starring role in Silver Streak with Gene Wilder in 1976 made him a star. And by Stir Crazy in 1980, he was the first black actor to earn $1 million. But Hollywood had rules. They wanted Richard to avoid race, molding him into a clean black man white audiences could stomach. "They want me to be a puppet," he told a friend, voice bitter. He entered Hollywood dreaming of a new life, but left with pockets full of drugs, vague contracts, and nameless fears. Was that glittering fame just bait, luring him into a bigger trap? Cocaine didn't knock. It slipped into the empty chair beside him in the studio, whispering false promises of freedom, and nobody heard it laugh when he did on stage. Long nights, thick with smoke, saw Richard sink into addiction to escape Hollywood's pressure and childhood loneliness. A friend recalled, "One night, he bolted awake, whispering, 'They want me silent forever.' He never said it again." But from that night, Richard wasn't himself. Those words make you wonder, who was he talking about? Hollywood producers? Or some unseen force? The 1967 Las Vegas walkout was a turning point. Richard fled to Berkeley, where the Black Power movement and figures like Huey Newton inspired him. There, he found his true voice, raw, honest comedy about race and injustice. But cocaine became a shadow, trailing him from studio to stage. The audience's laughter was his only light, but it couldn't banish the growing fear in his heart. He had fame, but losing himself made him question, was this spotlight really his? Chapter 3. Love, Scandal, and Betrayal. I'm burning, but I don't know why. Those scrawled words on a crumpled paper lay in a Los Angeles apartment, thick with cocaine smoke, where Richard Pryor sat alone among empty liquor bottles. A friend said he saw the letter, meant for Pam Grier, but nobody knows where it is now. Some say it burned in the fateful 1980 fire. Others claim Grier never got it. But those words, like a prophecy, seemed to foretell the fire that would consume not just his body, but his heart. Richard sought love like a man fumbling in a burning room. The harder he reached, the more he got burned. Jennifer Lee, his last wife, thought she could save him. She entered his life with hope, helping him face addiction, but found herself hiding behind locked doors, fearing his cocaine-fueled rages, as she later recalled with a trembling voice. Deborah McGuire, another wife, couldn't escape the fire either. On New Year's Eve, 1977, Richard fired a gun at her friend's car, the shots ringing like a declaration that his love always came with violence. "I can't control myself," he admitted later, voice heavy with regret. Pam Grier was a rare light. She sat patiently with him, teaching him to read, holding his hand through addiction. But Richard strayed, pushing her away, as if he believed anyone who loved him would leave, or be hurt by him first. A childhood of abandonment by his mother and control by his grandmother etched a belief that love was flammable, turning to ash. "I don't know how to love anybody," he told a friend, eyes empty, staring into a smoke-filled room. Another rumor fanned the flames of controversy. Quincy Jones and Jennifer Lee claimed Richard had a relationship with Marlon Brando, a secret tucked in unpublished diaries. But his daughter, Rain, angrily denied it, calling it a lie to exploit her father's name. Was it true, or just another ash in Richard's chaotic love story? He craved love, but left each relationship in flames, of cocaine, violence, or betrayal he couldn't control. Looking back, he saw only the ashes of broken bonds. Friends left, marriages ended, and he stood alone in roaring crowds, wondering if anyone saw him through the smoke. That letter to Pam Grier, if it existed, was perhaps a final cry for help from a man who didn't know how to love but yearned for it more than anything. Did it foretell the fateful fire, or was it just the ash of a broken heart with no escape? Chapter 4. The Fateful Fire. On June 9th, 1980, Los Angeles lit up with a horrific blaze. 39-year-old Richard Pryor ran through the streets, his body a living torch, screams blending with chaotic traffic. In his apartment, the carpet was scorched, windows shattered, a Courvoisier bottle rolled under the table, and the stench of cocaine hung like a curse. Nobody knows who was the last to leave that night. Richard told Barbara Walters months later, "That's when I tried to kill myself." Some pointed to a letter he wrote to Pam Grier. "I'm burning, but I don't know. Why?" As if he'd predicted the disaster, a paper perhaps turned to ash in that very fire. But the story isn't as simple as suicide. An anonymous friend, in a deleted Reddit post, claimed, "Richard didn't believe in accidents. He thought someone set him up with fire." Those slow, chilling words make you wonder, who might want him silent? Hollywood producers, irked by his sharp voice on race? Or drug dealers he owed, as some speculated? Nobody has answers, but that apartment, with its debris and smoke, looked like an uninvestigated crime scene. The fire left burns on half his body, but the blaze in his soul was crueler. 2 years later, in Live on the Sunset Strip, he stood on stage, lights shining on his scarred face, recounting the fire with bitter laughter. I jumped out the window, but the fire chased me. The audience laughed and clapped, thinking he'd moved on. But nobody saw him flinch at the sound of a lighter backstage, as if the fire still stalked him. Richard turned pain into art, making audiences laugh and cry, but he couldn't hide the tremble in his voice. A survivor, but never truly free. The media called him a cursed genius, and the public saw him as a failed addict. Judging eyes weighed heavy, as if Hollywood hung a mirror on the ceiling, forcing him to face his flaws even as he tried to forgive himself. Richard survived, but the feeling of being hunted never left. Each night, in a smoke-filled room, he wondered if he'd lit the fire himself, or if another hand poured the fuel. Was it just cocaine, or did an unseen force want his voice snuffed out? The fire's story leaves a gap. No police report explained it clearly. Nobody found the letter to Greer, if it existed. And Richard's whispers, about someone wanting him silent forever, only make the apartment seem like an unsolved mystery. Was the fire his cry for help, or did someone truly want to burn him, body and soul? Chapter 5. Trapped by Pressure. I don't want to do comedy anymore. I just want to be loved. Richard Pryor slumped in the studio, tears streaking an unfinished script, ink smudged like his invisible scars. It was the first and nearly last time he let anyone see his heart break. That night, co-star Paul Mooney stood silent, but his eyes betrayed unease. At the peak of his career, loved by millions through Live in Concert, Richard felt caged by Hollywood's judging stares and those closest to him. Hollywood wanted a clean black man, a safe image for white audiences. His role in 1982's The Toy was slammed as racist, a slap to the sharp voice he'd built. "They don't want me talking truth," he told Mooney, voice bitter. But betrayal didn't just come from Hollywood. In 2019, bodyguard Rashawn Khan revealed a secret, that Richard's closest friend, Paul Mooney, was suspected of abusing his son, Richard Jr. Jennifer Lee, his wife, claimed evidence existed. Mooney denied it. Richard Jr. stayed quiet, saying only he'd been hurt as a child. No clear records exist, but Richard never mentioned Mooney again. That secret, like smoke, hung between them, untouched. Family wasn't a refuge either. A cousin spoke of money disappearing from Richard's accounts during his rehab attempts, as if even kin exploited him. The public loved his laughs, but judged his personal life. From addiction to scandals, cocaine remained a shadow, whispering, pulling him deeper into darkness. In an undated letter, he wrote, "I believed in friends, but crowds laugh before they stab you." Nobody knows if the letter was real, but it felt like a warning from his soul. Richard kept performing, making theaters roar, but he couldn't escape feeling surrounded. Each time he faced a crowd, he wondered, did they love his laughs, or were they waiting for another fall? In a smoke-filled room, he faced himself, but found no way out of the cage the world built around him. Did betrayal from friends and family push him deeper into darkness, or did he lock his heart away before anyone could stab it? Chapter 6. A Lonely End. In 1986, multiple sclerosis, MS, knocked on Richard Pryor's Encino, California home, stealing his steps. In a wheelchair, his eyes still sparkled with humor, but his body was weary, a flame fading. Jennifer Lee said he'd joke, calling himself a broken robot when trying to move. But in quiet moments, he stared out the window, as if waiting for something that never came. A nurse who cared for him said in his final week, Richard refused his meds. "I know they're putting something in there," he said, eyes fixed on the door, as if fearing someone stood outside, unseen. One evening, producer George Schlatter visited. Richard played Live in Concert, watching himself on stage, The 1979 crowd's laughter, a distant memory. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "What do you miss most?" Schlatter asked. Richard's voice rasped, making a room laugh, when I had nothing left to laugh about. In that moment, his eyes weren't a legend's. They were the boy from Peoria's brothel, longing for someone to hold his hand. He lived quietly, but tried to leave a mark. In 1998, he received the Mark Twain Prize, though in a wheelchair on stage. Quincy Jones recalled him saying, "I'm not afraid to die. I just don't want to hurt anymore." But his whispers about strange medicine make you wonder. Did he truly believe someone controlled him, even in his final days? On December 10th, 2005, he died of a heart attack at 65, after years battling MS and heart disease. Richard left a blazing legacy, but a lonely one. He made the world laugh, but nobody saw the boy in the brothel, still waiting for an embrace that never came. Did he find peace? Or did secrets, from Peoria to Hollywood, haunt him to the end? Conclusion: a lasting legacy and lingering mystery. Richard Pryor wasn't just a comedian. He was a fire blazing through darkness, lighting the way for Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, and Dave Chappelle. Live in Concert in 1979 and Live on the Sunset Strip in 1982 remain gems of stand-up, turning pain into laughter. The 1998 Mark Twain Prize and a Peoria street named for him in 2015 testify to a man who dared speak truth about race, injustice, and himself in a divided America. But Richard's story isn't just laughter. The unread letter to Pam Grier, Marie's locked safe, the unseen photo with Marlon Brando, and above all, the 1980 fire, accident, despair, or a planned end. His whispers, "They want me silent forever. They're putting something in my meds. Our puzzle pieces never completed." Did Hollywood hide a bigger secret? Did family, from Marie to Paul Mooney, stay silent too long? Richard taught us laughter confronts darkness, but it's not always enough to banish it. He didn't live to explain everything, but he lived to prove comedy isn't a mask. It's a mirror to pain. He was strong, yet fragile, a hero to millions, and a victim of himself. From Peoria's brothel to Hollywood's glow, he burned brightly, but at the cost of a broken heart and a body ravaged by illness. Now, I want to hear from you, who lived through Richard Pryor's era. In the comments, share. What burned him? The fire on his skin, or the one in his heart? Did Hollywood hide something? Did family stay silent too long? Or was Richard, as he said, a flame nobody could extinguish? His story isn't closed, and maybe you'll find the final piece of the puzzle.